أن تكونوا شامة بين الورى فاقتفوا آثار جيل للمعالي سطرا إن أردتم أن تكونوا شامة بين الورى فاقتفوا.
الحمد لله يضع فما حمده جميع خلقه كما يحبه ويرضى. اللهم صل على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. First of all, we give all praise and all thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the favors and bounties Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on us. And we said salat and salam on his last and final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As we continue with Aqeedah At Tahawi, last class we started sentence number 20, وَضَرَبَ لَهُمْ أَجَالًا, which means He granted them fixed lifespan. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has fixed our lifespan. How long we have to live, that is already fixed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we went through a few ayats that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the word ajal. لا يستأخرون ساعة ولا يستقدمون. No one will be able to لا يستأخرون, to delay even for 1 minute. Neither no one will go before their time even 1 minute. But there's a hadith which is recorded by Imam Muslim. Now Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, إِنَّ خَلَقَ أَحَدُكُمْ يَجْمَعُ فِي بَطْنِ أُمِّهِ 40 يَوْمًا نُطْفَةً. He says sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that the creation of one of you, the way how you are created was that you gathered يَجْمَعُ فِي بَطْنِ أُمِّهِ, you are gathered in the womb of your mother for 40 days as a nutfa, as a drop of sperm. So your mother conceived, and our mother conceived us, we were in the stage for that first 40 days, we were in the stage of a nutfa, a stage of the sperm. ثُمَّ يَكُونُ عَلَقَةً مِثْلَ ذَلِكَ. And after that 40 days pass, we go on to a second stage, and that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, is known as alaqa. Alaqa, which means a clot of blood. So from that liquid stage, the nutfa, the sperm, 40 days pass. The second 40 days, we go on to be in an alaqa, a clot of blood. He says, mithla dhalik, the same amount of days, same amount of 40 days. So exact 40 days for the nutfa, the sperm, and then a second 40 days exactly again, he says, because he says, mithlu dhalik, exactly like that, which means the same amount of days, 40 days as a alaqa, as a clot of blood. Then he said, ثُمَّ يَكُونُ مُضْغَةً مِثْلَ ذَلِكَ. After that second 40 days, you go on to the third 40 days. You are in that third 40 days as a mudgha, a lump of flesh. Become a lump of flesh, and that lump of flesh stays there for 40 days again. So you have 3 40 days. He says, then, ثُمَّ يَبْعَثُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ مَلِكًا. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends an angel to that lump of flesh after he has passed that 120 days, because 40 by 3 gives you 120. Gives you 120 days. So you move on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after that 120 days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sends the angels. And he sends that angel now to write 4 kalimat. And he writes amaluhu, his actions. So the ruh and the soul is not placed in the mudgha as yet. This lump of flesh is only there. No ruh, no life, nothing is in this lump of flesh. The angels come, and the one thing they write is your actions. So you don't even have life as yet, but yet all your actions are already written by the angels, because Allah has given them the actions that you are going to do. And that is by the knowledge of Allah. Allah knows what you're going to do. So the first thing he writes is amaluhu, his amal. The second thing he writes is ajalahu, his ajal, his time. So the time that he have, if this individual who's going to born is going to live for 50 years, it writes 50 years. If he's going to live for 60 years, it writes 60 years, exact amount of days. And they also write his risk, his sustenance. So the three things so far. The first thing he writes is his amal, his action. The second thing it writes is his ajal, his time. The third thing it writes is his risk and his sustenance. And the fourth thing that it writes, shaqiyun aw sa'irun. If this individual will either be shaqi, if he will be unfortunate, or if he will be fortunate. Means if he will be from Jahannam or if he will be from Jannah. So even before, and this is all of these 4 things which it writes, it is writing it before the ruh is even blown into it, before it is given life. It is only a lump of flesh at that time. When it finished writing these 4 things, ثُمَّ يُنْفَقُ فِيهِ ruh, then it blows the ruh into it. So only after these 4 things is written, the ajal, the risk, the amal, and if it be sa'irun or shaqiyun, only after that he blows the ruh and it comes to life. So after 120 days, then the ruh, the soul goes into that lump of flesh, and from then on, the limbs and everything starts to move, because the ruh and the soul enters in. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying this to his sahabas. If we look back at the history of this hadith, in the time of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, there were no hospitals, there were no big scientists, there were no big research, no kind of technology that they could find out these things. And only a few centuries ago, they were able to understand the laws of embryology, of the embryo, the growing of the embryo. And he, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's not a doctor. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't went to any university to become a doctor. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a ummi, was an unlettered, did not know how to read and write, but he was the most wise. But what he is telling here is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to him, what Allah is telling him. Because there was no way Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have known about this. Because even the Jews and the Christians who had their books, they did not even know about this. Because this is not mentioned in their books, in the Torah, neither in the Injil. It is only mentioned in the Quran. And this could also be found in Surah Al-Hajj. Allah mentioned the same stages, nutfa, alaqa, and then mudgha. So in Surah Al-Hajj. So this was one of the miracles that many of the doctors and the scientists who discovered it realized that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam have to be a messenger. Many of them accepted Islam after realizing that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago, he was saying this without any use of any kind of technology. So this by itself, this hadith by itself is a miracle, and the angel comes and it writes these 4 things. And that is why the author of Aqeedah At Tahawi is saying, وَضَرَبَ لَهُمْ أَجَالًا. Allah has written, Allah has fixed for them a specific time that they were going to live. And this time is not only when the angel come and write it on when you're a mudgha, but it was already written in destiny so much of years before Allah created even the creation. But when each individual is going to born, when the mother conceives and it becomes to the stage of a mudgha, Allah sends the knowledge from what was already written in destiny with the angel to write it down. And the angel comes and the angel writes these 4 things down. Again, the 4 things is action. All is action. Every single thing that you will do. All the good actions, all the bad actions. His ajal, his time. Every single day that you will live until his last breath. His risk. His sustenance also will be written for him. When he says sustenance, every single thing. Every single sustenance that we're going to eat. how much we're going to eat and when we're going to eat, how we're going to get it, every single thing, the risk, the entire risk was written. And then if he's going to be shaqi or if he's going to be sa'id, if he's going to be fortunate or if he's going to be unfortunate. If you see the stages that is mentioned in this hadith, it talks about 40. You know, the brothers who are in tabligh would encourage you to go for 40 days. Because there are many things about 40 in the hadith. Even though there is no hadith that says say that Rasulullah went out for 40 days. But there are many things Rasulullah spoke about 40 days. For example, your salat. When he says, whoever comes for 40 days getting the first takbir, he will get 2 blessings. One, freedom from nifaq, and the other, freedom from Jahannam. And that is how many days? 40 days. Same hadith, and even in the Quran, Allah mentioned many things about 40 days. When Musa alayhi salam was promised 30 days to go up, and then Allah increased it to 40 days. Spent 40 nights there. So many things about 40. And here the different stages, how we were created were in different stages. And it was not 30 days, it was not 25 days, but it was in 40 days. So that's why the scholars have the opinion that when you go out for that 40 days, just as how your stages that you are growing, you are building, Allah created you in 40 different stages by 40 days. When you go out, you're able to rectify your outer body as well, rectify yourself. Because that is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in 40s. And if you see the exact amount, they say 40 as nutfa, there's 40 days, then 40 days as alaqa, that makes it how many days? 80 days. And then 40 days as mudgha makes it 120 days. When you look at 120 days now into months, 30 days a month. 30, 1 month, a second 30, 60 days. And then 2 other months give you what? 120 days. So you get 4 months. So that's why they are the opinion that you should go for 40 and the 4 months. This is where the analysis come in. So Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in another hadith, "Inna nafsa lan tamuta hatta tastakmila rizquha." That a servant, an individual will never die until he completes his risk. We cannot die until we complete our risk. And this is something we all fight on in this world. We are fighting on. I have to get my risk. Everything is about my risk. And when we say risk, it is not restricted to only food. Food is not risk alone. When we say risk, the word risk is not ta'am. Ta'am is food. The word risk refers to food, clothing, shelter, everything. All your worldly things that you are given, that is risk. That is your sustenance, your provisions. So the clothes that you are wearing is your risk. The house that you have, that is your risk. So everything, and this is what we are fighting for risk. And we cannot die until we complete the risk that was already written when we are in the womb of our mother, before even the ruh was blown into us. Even if there's 1 more grain of rice, we have to eat out. We cannot die without eating that 1 more grain of rice. We have to eat that out. When that is completed, only then we can die. So we cannot die until all of our risk is usurped, is taken away, until we use up all of our risk. And another hadith, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Idha qadallahu bi abdin ayyamutu bi ardin, ja'ala lahu ilayha hajatan." Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He decrees for a servant to die at a specific land, Allah makes a means, a need for him to go to that place. Allah makes a means, because Allah has already written on our time. And not only our time, Allah has written on where and when and how. All of that was already written. So when we hear Allah has fixed a time and Allah has fixed when we are going to die, it's not only when our soul will come, but which place we will come and in what condition and how is it that our soul will come out. All of that is already written. So for example, a person, and we see it many times, many brothers go for Hajj and they never return from Hajj. They go for Hajj, going thinking, I'm going to visit the Kaaba, and then after the Kaaba, I'll come back home with my family, everything will be normal. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had already decreed before they were even born, while they were in the state of a mudghah, Allah has already decreed that you have to go to Hajj or you're going to die there. There's where I want you to die. So Allah makes it easy for you to go. Many times people go on vacations. You go on a vacation, go to Miami, or you go to some other place. Live in Trinidad for so long, you're happy, I'm getting to go reach all the foreigners. And you go, after 2 weeks, you pass away right over there. First time you're ever going over. You have never traveled in your whole life. You have lived your whole life, sometimes 60 years. We see it many a time, 60, 70 years in one place. And then all of a sudden, things just start to happen. And you say, you know what, I'm getting a good opportunity. I'm going to visit my children and my grandchildren over there. And when we do go over there now, that is where Allah had decreed for us to die. Even though many of us sometimes, we say, you know what, I like Barrackpore, I like Laramine, I want to die here. I want to die here, I want to bury so and so. But we do not know where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for us. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that so and so, that is where we're going to go. And Allah makes the means. Sometimes an individual, he's at home and all of a sudden he realizes, you know what, I run out of some sugar. And I have to go quick at the grocery to buy some sugar. And right in the car park, or when he pick up the sugar, he falls down on the ground. He dies. Allah made that means. Allah wanted him at this time that you're going to die right in his grocery. So Allah made a means. You have to go there to die. So there's no escape from it. However Allah wants it to happen, it will happen. No matter what we do, we cannot stop it. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, of the few things that no man knows except Allah. One of those things is وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ, which could be found in Surah Luqman. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ, no soul knows which land he will die. No one of us know which land or which place we will die. It is already fixed, but we do not know. And this thing about death, no one of us here like to talk about that. Who like to talk about that? We might talk about other people's death, but talk about our own death. Nobody wants to talk about our own death. As soon as we hear the topic about our own death, we say, hold up. I have some more years again. Give me some more time. Do not talk about that. I'm too young. I have many more things to do. We do not like to talk about death. Even though all of us, we're sure that we have to die. There's no one of us that ever doubt that we have to die. But the thing is, even though we're sure that we have to die, no one of us wants to die. No one of us would like to die because we are scared. And one of the most scary things is that we do not know when we're going to die, in what situation and what position. We don't know what state we're going to be in, if we're going to be in a state of obedience or we're going to be in a state of disobedience. We don't know how is it the angel of death will come. And that's why Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Kun fi dunya ka'annaka ghariba wa abiru sabil." You should live in this life ka'annaka gharib, as if you're a stranger to it. Do not mean to sell out your house, no. I mean to go sell out your car and everything and say I had to be like a stranger. Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib. Live in the life as if you're a stranger. You're not clinging on to it. Just take what you need. Just take what you need. Or abiru sabil, or if you're a traveler, be in it like if you're a traveler. When you're traveling, you don't go empty-handed neither. If you're going to go on a journey, you take those things that you need. So this life, we have to take things that we need. So if we need a house to live, we have to have that house. Our transport is a means of carrying us from one place to the other. So these are things that we need. Just like how when we are traveling, we travel with all those things that we'll need for that journey. Similarly, we need things in this life to complete this life. So we have to achieve that as well. That's why when we make the dua, we do not say, Rabbana atina fil akhirati hasana alone. We say, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana. Allah, give me goodness in this world as well as the hereafter. Give me the best in the dunya as well as in the best in the akhirah. This is not only about the akhirah, but the dunya as well as the akhirah. So Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ibn Umar used to say, إِذَا أَمْسَيْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الصَّبَاحِ وَإِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءِ. He used to say, if you live to see the morning, you live to see the evening, do not wait to see the morning. We live to see the evening. We are alive in the evening. We have Maghrib to pray, we have Isha to pray. Do not say, you know what, I'm too tired, I'll leave that till tomorrow. Tomorrow night I'll make up that. I'm not going to pray tonight, I'm going to take some rest. Say, do not wait for the morning. Do not put off anything good for the morning. Because we do not know if we're going to live to see tomorrow morning. Because many a times we go to sleep and we never open our eyes again. He says, وَإِذَا أَصْبَحْتَ فَلَا تَنْتَظِرِ الْمَسَاءَ. And if you wake up in the morning, be grateful and thankful to Allah, but do not wait to see the evening. Do not put off things. Till this evening I'll do so. Till this evening I'll do so. Do not put off to see this evening. Whatever you could do in the morning, do it. Then he says, وَخُذْ مِنْ صِحَتِكَ لِمَرْضِكَ وَمِنْ حَيَاتِكَ لِمَوْتِكَ. And he says, take advantage of your good health before you become sick. Do not wait until you become sick to say, you know what, if only I had good health now, I would have gone to the masjid. If only I wasn't on my bed here. But when you had good health, you still wasn't coming. Many individuals, you go and you visit them. They will lie down on their bed and they will say, you know what, if only I could have walked now. You would have seen me, I would have gone to the masjid. I really missed the masjid. But when they were healthy and they were strong, they were hardly even coming still. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away their good health. So Rasulullah is saying, take advantage of that good health before you become sick. And take advantage of your life before death comes to you. That is something we should be happy about. Even though we do not like it, something that we should be happy about. Because Rasulullah he says, Tuhfatul mu'min al-maut. He says, death is a gift for the believers. When Allah has given death to a believer, that is a form of a gift, a present Allah has given to the believers by giving him death. Many of us, if somebody gives us a gift, how do we react towards a gift? Somebody buy a nice present, buy a nice phone, buy a nice car, and say, look, take the keys. How we react? We feel like hug them and kiss them and say, Jazakallah khairan kathiran tayyiban, and we start going and going. Because we are happy, this is a gift, this is a present. Similarly, Rasulullah he says, death should be a present. You should be so happy to know that you're going back to Allah. As believers, we should be happy to know that we are going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why the advice of Rasulullah he says, Mutu qabla an tumut. For you to have that kind of feeling of happiness when death comes to you, when the angel of death comes to you, the only way you can have that feeling is if you die before that comes to you. If you die before that comes to you. Not commit suicide, I don't know. Right? Die before that comes to you means that you should ready to die anytime. Be as if you're dead. That you're ready. If the angel of death comes to you, you're ready. That means by die before that comes to you. You're ready. You've already prepared everything. You're just waiting. Come and take me. And if you're very conscious of our good deeds, then whenever death comes to us, we'll accept it. We'll be ready. But if we are not conscious, then we'll be unprepared and we're not ready to die. So he's trying to say, be ready to die before death even comes to you. So that's what it means by mutu qabla an tamut, die before death comes to you. Means that you should be very prepared, well prepared, ready for the angel of death whenever he comes to you. And then number 21. وَلَمْ يَخْفَ عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٌ قَبْلَ أَن يَخْلُقَهُمْ وَعَلِمَ مَا هُمْ عَامِلُونَ قَبْلَ أَن يَخْلُقَهُمْ. Again, the Arabic, وَلَمْ يَخْفَ عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٌ قَبْلَ أَن يَخْلُقَهُمْ وَعَلِمَ مَا هُمْ عَامِلُونَ قَبْلَ أَن يَخْلُقَهُمْ. Which means nothing about them was hidden from him before he created them. And he knew everything that they would do before he created them. Right? And this is the main aspect of Qadr, understanding destiny and understanding that nothing about us or nothing about the world and the universe was hidden from Allah before he created them. So as you are mentioning, even before Allah created everything, everything was clear in front of Allah. Nothing was hidden from him. Nothing that we're going to do was hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing that we are going to say when he created us and when he put us in this world, nothing was hidden from him. He knew that even before he created us. So nothing was hidden. And then he says, وَعَلِمَ مَا هُمْ عَامِلُونَ. And he knew what they will be doing before he created them. His knowledge is such that he knew everything that they will be doing before he created them. And that's why we say, with the understanding of Qadr, is that it's not that He's not giving us a free will. He gives us a free will. He's given us a choice. We could choose. But His knowledge is so great that He knows what we're going to choose before He even created us. Before He even created us, He knew what is it that we're going to choose, even though we have that free choice. And if we choose right or we choose wrong, He knew that we're going to choose right or we're going to choose wrong before we are even in this world, before we are even existing. Before we are even created, Allah already had that knowledge. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was capable of writing qadr because of His great knowledge and His ilm. And we explained that many a times when we did qadr, so we will not go too much into that. Sentence number 22. He says, وَأَمَرَهُمْ بِطَاعَتِهِ وَنَهَاهُ عَنْ مَعْصِيَتِهِ. Again, وَأَمَرَهُمْ بِطَاعَتِهِ وَنَهَاهُمْ عَنْ مَعْصِيَتِهِ. Which means He ordered them to obey Him and He forbid them to disobey Him. Again, He ordered them, that is us, the creation, He ordered the creation to obey Him, and He prevented or He forbid the creation to disobey Him. So if you understand the sequence of what the author has given us, one thing He tells us about the creation, Allah created us. He tells us of Allah is the creator, He's the Khaliq, He created you, and He's able to resurrect you. And then He tells us of destiny. He not only created you, but Allah has already destined everything that you're going to do. And then He tells us of our lifespan. Not only that He has decreed everything, but He has also fixed when is it, how long we're going to live in this world. And now He's going to tell us what is our purpose in life. After all, He's only telling us of creation, destiny, and our lifespan. So now He's going to tell us why is it that I have did that to you? Why did I created you? Why is it that I have written down your destiny? Why is it that I've given you a lifespan? Why is it that I've given you 60 years? Why is it that I've given you 70 years? The reason I've given you that, He says, وَأَمْرَهُمْ بِطَاعَتِهِ, so that He will command you to obey Him, because He wants you to obey Him. And He forbids them from disobeying Him. That is the reason, and that's the purpose of our life, to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to obey Allah and to only worship Him, and to do not disobey Him. And we as human beings, when we look at the way how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us, we should really and truly be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us our life. If it wasn't for Allah, we wouldn't be present here today. We wouldn't be existent. If it wasn't for Allah, we wouldn't have our homes. If it wasn't for Allah, we wouldn't have our children. We wouldn't have our spouses. We wouldn't have our family. If it wasn't for Allah, we wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't have air to breathe. So there's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the creator and the sustainer, and He has given us everything. Now all that Allah is asking you is not to repay with any money. All that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asking you now is for some obedience, just to obey me. Just to follow my commands. Whatever I have commanded you, to obey it. And whatever I have prohibited you from, to stay away from it. That is all I am asking. After giving you everything, after making you into something from nothing, because we mentioned we are nothing. So He made us into something from nothing, and He continues to grant us His favors and His mercy, and He will even continue to do that until our death. And His entire life that He has given us, and His body and His health, all that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking from us now is just to obey Him. And how much of us as human beings obey Him? How much of us even as Muslims obey Him? How much of us as Muslims, many a times we fall short and we disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, many of us. In the Hadith Qudsi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Ya ibadi innama hiya a'malukum uhsiha lakum. Ya ibadi, O my servants, it is only your actions that I will be counting for you. It's only your action I'll be checking. I will not check your body. I will not check how strong you are. I will not check what position you had. Allah is saying, O my servants, Ya ibadi, innama hiya a'malukum. Innama is for tahassur, which means only. The only thing that I'm going to count for you when you go back to me is your actions. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I'm going to deal with, your actions. And that is good actions as well as bad actions. The only thing I'll be dealing with with your actions. As Allah says in Surah Bani Israel, in ahsantum ahsantum li anfusikum, wa in asa'tum fala. If you do good, you only do good for yourself. You do not good for anybody else. And if you do evil, that is only upon yourself. That burden will come on you. So in this hadith Qudsi, Allah is saying, Ya ibadi, innama hiya a'malukum uhsiha lakum. O my servants, it is only your actions, how you live your life. What good deeds you do, what bad deeds you do, how you treat your neighbor, how you treat your spouse, how you treat your children, how you treat your relatives, how you treat your business partner, how was your obedience to Allah. That is all Allah will deal with on that day. Then he said, ثُمَّ أُوَفِّيكُمْ إِيَّاهَا. And that is the only thing I will recompense you about. The only thing I will be giving you blessings or taking away blessings for is because of your deeds, whatever deeds you have done. Then he says, فَمَنْ وَجَدَ خَيْرًا فَلْيَحْمَدِ اللَّهِ. Whoever amongst you sees goodness, then he should praise Allah, thank Allah. So whichever one of us sees that I'm doing a lot of good deeds, or we are doing a lot of good deeds, we are praying our salat, we are trying to be good to our neighbors, we are trying to live a very respectful life and an obedient life to Allah. As long as we are seeing that in our life, he says, فَلْيَحْمَدِ then praise Allah. Thank Allah, because it's Allah who is giving you that ability to do that. If Allah didn't give you that ability to do that, how would you be able to live your life in the correct way? It says, فَلْيَحْمَدِ so thank Allah and praise Allah. وَمَنْ وَجَدَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ and whoever finds other than that, whoever amongst you finds other than that, means you find in your life there is only disobedience. You find in your life you cannot pray one salat. One salat is difficult. You find in your life you are accustomed, you're habitual in thieving or in robbing. You find in your life that you have become an alcoholic and not one day could pass without taking a sip. It says, whoever sees other than obedience, you find that you are in a lot of disobedience. He says, فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسَهُ. He should not blame anyone but himself. Cannot blame anyone but himself, because he has chosen that path. So, in another hadith, Rasulullah he says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ فَرَضَ فَرَائِدْ فَلَا تُضَيِّئُوهَا. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the 4 things compulsory for you. Allah has made a few things compulsory, obligatory. فَلَا تُضَيِّئُوهَا. So do not neglect it. Whatever is fard, do not neglect it. Do not put it off. And we know things which are fard and things which are not fard. So he said, فَلَا تُضَيِّئُوهَا وَحَدَّ هُدُودًا فَلَا تَعْتَدُوهَا. And Allah has made a lot of boundaries and a lot of limits. Allah has set a lot of boundaries, so do not overstep it. Do not overstep these boundaries Allah has set. وَحَرَّمَ أَشْيَاءَ فَلَا تَنْتَهِكُوهَا. And Allah has made many things haram. And we know the things which Allah has made haram. These things which Allah has made haram, فَلَا تَنْتَهِكُوهَا. Do not violate it. Do not violate the muharramat. وَسَقَطَ عَنْ أَشْيَاءَ رَحْمَةً لَكُمْ. And then he says, Allah has also been silent about a few things. So he says Allah has made things compulsory as well as Allah has made things haram. But there are some things Allah did not speak about. Now many things come up these days and we cannot find it in the Quran and we cannot find it in Hadith. Allah has been silent about certain things. Rasulullah he says those things which Allah was silent about is a rahmat alakum, it is a mercy for you. The reason Allah has been silent about it is because Allah wants to bestow mercy on you. Allah did not want it to be difficult on you. He says, Fala nisyan, it's not that Allah forget it. Allah did not become quiet or remain quiet about certain issues that will be coming up in 2014 or 2015 because He forgot what was going to happen 2015 or 2016. The reason Allah has become quiet or had remained quiet about it is because Allah wants it to be as a mercy for us. So He says, فَلَا تَبْحَثُوا عَنْهَا. So do not search out faith. Do not try to seek faith. Allah has already been quiet for you, just leave it. Do not go and search and try to make it hard upon yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created the jinnats and mankind except to worship me. I have not created jinnats and mankind except to worship me. We hear this ayat study. Very often. Anybody give a talk, they'll quote this ayat. So I guess everybody memorized it already. Right? This is the purpose we were created for. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say, I've not created Jannat a man except to worship me and to look after his family and to make sure he maintain his car and his house. All Allah says is to worship me. That's the only thing I've created. So that's the only purpose. So if a person does something else other than worshiping Allah, is he going against his purpose in life? Because all the ayat says, Illa liya'budun, except to worship me. The only thing I've created you for is that you worship me. It says ibadah, ya'budun. The word ibadah, for example, one meaning is worship. Translation that we translated many places is to worship, ibadah. Ibadah refers to, if an individual, he prays his salat. For example, we just prayed Maghrib salat. That is ibadat. That is worship. So, by doing that, we have did what? We fulfill our purpose. We worship Allah. Now, for example, an individual prays his Maghrib salat, and then after he prays his fard, he prays his sunnah, he goes home. He likes to watch his news, especially the headlines. So he wants to make sure, and what? I know what's happening. So he puts on his news and he lights his dinner between Maghrib and Isha. He sits down and he eats his meal, watches news, watch the time to come back for Isha, and he comes back for Isha. That period of time between Maghrib and Isha, he didn't say anything. He didn't say Subhanallah. He didn't even read his dua before he eats. All he did is just eat his food. And he watches TV, jump in his car, and he comes back for Isha. Was he worshipping Allah? Was he worshipping Allah? He wasn't worshipping Allah, but he was doing ibadat. He wasn't worshipping Allah, but he was doing ibadat. And that is the thing, whilst trying to understand Arabic, we cannot use one English word to explain an Arabic word. Ibadat does not only mean worship. He was not worshipping Allah because he was eating. Even if he didn't say his dua before eat, he didn't say his dua after eat, he was in the obedience of Allah. As long as you are not disobeying Allah at that specific time, you are in ibadat. That is ibadat. So even though ibadat is not only worship, praying Maghrib, praying Asr, that is worship, that is ibadat. But not praying, but staying away from sin, that is also ibadat, but is not worship. It is a form of ibadat. So that is why the better translation for ibadat is to be obedient. Allah has created us to be obedient to Him. The only reason Allah has created us is for us to be obedient. So if an individual, he is praying his salah, he is obedient to Allah. He is fulfilling an act of ibadat. A person between a Maghrib to Isha, he is sitting home. As long as he is not sinning, he is still in the obedience of Allah. Because he is not sinning, he is not disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he is still in ibadat. So that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا خَلَقْتَ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in Surah Al-Mulk, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Allah says, the reason I've created this entire world, the lifespan, is to see which one of you will be best in deeds. And they did not say most in deeds. They did not say quantity. It says quality. Ahsan means the best, the most excellent. Allah did not say, I've created you to see how much of you will pray more Fajr Salah than the other. Or see which one of you will fast more days than the other. Or who will do more. He did not say more. He says Ahsan, which means the best. Which one of you will do the best of deeds? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see the best quality in your deeds. Even though your deeds sometimes might be less than another, because of the quality it could be raised. As we all know the hadith about salat, sometimes some people pray their salat and they get a half of the blessings, you get 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, 1/6. Even some of them, their salat is thrown back on their faces as a dirty rag. So it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Allah wants to see the kind of quality we have in us when we are doing these acts of ibadat. And now we go to sentence number 23. Sentence number 23, he says, وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ يَجْرِي بِتَقْدِيرِهِ ومشيئته ومشيئته تنفذ لا مشيئة للعباد إلا ما شاء لهم فما شاء لهم كان وما لم يشاء لم يكن. Again the Arabic, وكل شيء يجري بتقديره ومشيئته ومشيئته تنفذ لا مشيئة للعباد إلا ما شاء لهم فما شاء لهم كان وما لم يشاء لم يكن. Which means everything happens according to His decree and will, and His will is always accomplished. The only will that people have is what He wills for them. What He wills for them occurs, and what He does not will does not occur. Right? This again deals with the destiny and the taqdeer. It says everything happens according to the decree and the will. Every single thing happens only by the will and the decree of Allah. And His will is always accomplished. Whatever is the will of Allah is always accomplished. It never fails. It never goes short. It is always accomplished. Then He says the only will that we as people have, as human beings have, is that which Allah gives us. Is what Allah gives us. That's why we say whatever individual does, he only does because Allah granted him that will to do it. Even though Allah granted it a free choice, he had a free choice, could choose what he wants to do. But he says, you know what, I want to do so. It is Allah that gives him the will to do that. It says Allah granted him that ability and that power to do it. So the only will that we as human beings have is that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. And whatever He wills for them occurs. Whatever Allah wills for us as human beings occurs. And whatever Allah does not will does not occur. So if Allah does not will for so and so to happen, it will not happen. It will not occur. The unbelievers, Allah says in the Quran, He says, وَقَالُوا لَوْ شَاءَ الرَّحْمَنُ مَا عَبَدْنَاهُ وَمَا لَهُ مِنْ عِلْمٍ. The unbelievers, they used to say to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they says, if Allah wanted, لَوْ شَاءَ الرَّحْمَنُ مَا عَبَدْنَاهُمْ. If Allah wanted, if it was the will of Allah, Allah wanted, we would not have been worshipping these idols. It's Allah who wants us to worship these idols. Everything is by the willpower of Allah. Everything is the will of Allah. We are worshipping these idols. It's because Allah wants us to worship these idols. If Allah didn't want us to worship these idols, how would we be worshipping these idols? That's what they used to say. But as we mentioned, it's the free choice Allah has given us. Allah has already given us a free choice. And whatever we choose, that is what Allah grants us the will. So if we choose to be idol worshippers, then Allah will say, go ahead, this is what you want, then go ahead. I will grant you the will. But it's not that Allah likes it. What they were saying here is that Allah likes what we are doing. Allah approves of what we are doing. Allah is happy that we are worshipping idols. So how is it Allah will punish us when He is happy? But it shows us that Allah is not happy, but Allah grants you the ability because you choose that way. And this life, Allah has granted us that choice because He wants to test us to see if we are going to be good or bad. If Allah did not grant us that free choice, then He could not have seen if we are good or bad. Because Allah would have only willed that we only do good things all the time. But Allah has granted us that free choice, and then whatever we want, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to us. In the time of Umar bin Al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, somebody was caught stealing. And you know the law in Islam is that one of the hands will be cut off, will be amputated. So when this man came to Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, says, "Oh Umar bin Al-Khattab, how could you cut off my hands? How could you amputate my hands when it was the will of Allah? It was already destined, it was a decree of Allah for me to thief, for me to steal, so and so." So Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he told him that I'm going to amputate your hand, and that is also the decree of Allah. Allah will decree that as well. So I'm going to do that as well, because He have a free choice. And as we all know about, we mentioned about the story of Musa alayhi salam and Adam. When Adam said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already written, I was just doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. It is mentioned from the scholars that Musa alayhi salam was not speaking to Adam alayhi salam about the actual act that he did, because he knew that that was destiny. But what Musa alayhi salam was actually blaming him. He could not have blamed him for what he did, because that was already destined. But what he was blaming him for the affliction that people was facing at present. Because when Musa alayhi salam came, the Bani Israel was in it was in slavery. So because of the amount of persecution, he was saying, look at the kind of situation you have us in now because of what you did. But Musa alayhi salam, he knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had forgiven Adam alayhi salam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen Adam alayhi salam to be the first and foremost prophet of Allah and messenger. Last hadith, before we go, a hadith which is found in Imam Muslim. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Al-mu'min al-qawiyu khayrun wa ahabbu ila Allah min al-mu'min al-da'if. He says, a strong believer is better and more loved in the sight of Allah than a weak believer. A strong believer is more loved and better in the sight of Allah than a weak believer. And this refers to both physical as well as spiritual. An individual whom his iman is high. If somebody their iman is high, definitely Allah will like them more and he will be more better in the sight of Allah than an individual his iman is low. His iman is weak. Because when your iman becomes high, you become more closer to Allah. You try to be more obedient to Allah. As well as physically as well. An individual who is strong, physically fit, he more loved and better in the sight of Allah than an individual who is very sickly and who is very weak. Because most of our actions of ibadat deals with our physical body. To pray salat, we have to use our body to pray. If we are sickly, then we cannot stand and pray and perform our ruku properly, we cannot perform our sajda properly. If we are strong, we are able to fast sunnah fast, we are able to fast all the fard fasts. If you are weakly and you realize you could only fast 10 days in Ramadan and the rest of the days you cannot make it a fast. Who will be more loved in the sight of Allah? The individual who is physically fit. So it both means spiritual as well as physical. And then Rasulullah he says, وَإِن كُلُّ خَيْرٍ. Even though both of them, they are goodness. Because all two are believers. Allah loves both of them. Allah loves the weak believer as well as Allah loves the strong believer. But Allah loves the strong believer more than the weak believer. Because all two of them have goodness. Then he says, إِحْرِصْ عَلَى مَا يَنْفَوْكَ. He says, be eager to do those things that will benefit you. So this life that we are talking about taqdeer and about our time that we have in this life, he's saying, ihris ala ma yanfa'uka. Be eager to do those things that will benefit you. If you see something has benefit for you, you should try. It should be in your heart that I want to do so and so. I want to accomplish so and so. I do not know to read Quran and I know that is beneficial for me. I want to read Quran. I want to do this. I want to do that because you know that it is beneficial for you. So he says, always look at your options. He's telling you, look at your options. If I go and drink some alcohol, what benefit will that bring for me? No benefit. He says, look at things that will benefit you. And only things that will benefit you, only those things have that eager in your heart that you want to go after. And then as long as you find it, the first thing is finding those things that will benefit you. Next thing is to have it in your heart. Yes, I want that. Then he says the other step is wasta'in billah. The other step is to seek help from Allah. Ask Allah to help you because only Allah can help you to achieve it. Then he says wala ta'jiz. Wala ta'jiz, and do not become ta'jiz, do not become hopeless. Saying, what, this is too hard, I cannot make it, this is too difficult for me. As long as you do the steps, as long as you are eager to do it, as long as you're asking Allah to help you, then do not give up. Never give up. Always strive. And then he says, وَإِنْ أَصَابَكَ شَيْءٌ. And if something bad happens to you now, some calamities befall you. You know, many times we look back and we see things happen to us in the past. And these things that happened to us in the past, we start to say, no, if only I did so and so, it would have been better. You know what, if only I didn't exceed the speed limit, I wouldn't have get in that accident. If only I had wired my building properly, I wouldn't have fire in my house. Right? And we say, if only, said he says, وَإِنْ أَصَابَكَ شَيْءٌ. If something afflicts you and you're looking back and you're pondering, he says, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَوْ أَنِّي فَعَلْتُ كَانَ كَذَا وَكَذَا. Do not say, if only I did so and so, it would have been like so and so. But you should say, وَلَكِنْ قُلْ قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. Say, this is the decree of Allah. Whatever Allah wants, He does. That was the past. There's nothing I could do to bring it back. There's nothing that you could do to bring it back. So you watch at what has happened and you try to better your future, better the present and your future. And he says, because verily that word law, that word if, by saying if for past tense, it will open the gates of shaitan. Shaitan will start to play up with you. So you need to be focused. Things which have already passed, that is gone. We cannot correct that. We cannot change that. But what we could do, we could better our today as well as our tomorrow. So use what was gone in the past, not to fix it, not to change it, because we cannot fix it, we cannot change it, but we can better today as well as tomorrow. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us all. May Allah grant us the tawfiq, the ability to be more obedient to Him, and may Allah accept all of our good deeds. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم
إن أردتم أن تكونوا شامة بين الورى فاقتفوا آثار جيل للمعالي سطرا إن أردتم أن تكونوا شامة بين الورى فاقتفوا آثار جيل للمعالي سطرا جيل زيد وأسيد ومعاذ والبراء